Preparing for a Suncorp Bank interview? You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 20 key questions you're likely to face. For each question you'll see a sample answer followed by the key points to cover. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. Tell me about yourself and why your experience is relevant to Suncorp Bank. I have built experience in customer service and financial analysis, where accuracy, clear communication, and sound judgment were essential. In my previous role, I improved a reporting process that reduced review time by 20% while maintaining strong quality controls. I am now seeking a banking role where I can combine commercial thinking with meaningful customer outcomes. Suncorp Bank appeals to me because it has a strong Australian identity, practical customer focus, and reputation for taking responsible lending seriously. While answering, focus on your most relevant banking, finance, customer service, analytical, or risk experience. Quantify achievements. Connect your strengths to Suncorp Bank's customer focus, disciplined risk culture, and Australian banking environment. Question 2. Why do you want to work for Suncorp Bank? I want to join Suncorp Bank because the role combines financial discipline with a clear customer purpose. The bank operates in markets where trust, responsible lending, and reliable service matter every day, particularly for home and business customers. I also value the opportunity to learn within a well-established Australian banking environment while contributing my analytical and relationship skills. My interest is not simply in working for a recognizable brand, it is in helping customers make sound financial decisions. Make sure to cover Suncorp Bank's Australian market position, customer-oriented culture, purpose, responsible banking approach, and how the specific role fits your capabilities and long-term development rather than relying on generic enthusiasm. Question 3. What do you know about Suncorp Bank and its business? Suncorp Bank is an Australian bank serving retail and business customers through products such as home loans, deposits, transaction accounts, and business finance. Its performance depends on balancing customer service, funding costs, credit quality, operational resilience, and regulatory obligations. I also understand that Suncorp Bank's banking business became part of ANZ, while the Suncorp Bank brand continues to serve customers. That makes disciplined integration, consistent service, and strong controls especially important. In your answer, mention Suncorp Bank's Australian banking operations, retail and business customers, deposits, home lending, risk management, digital channels, and its continuing brand relationship with ANZ following the banking business acquisition. Question 4. How would you deliver excellent customer service in a banking role? Excellent banking service starts with understanding the customer's actual need rather than rushing toward a product. I would listen carefully, ask focused questions, explain options in plain English, and confirm the customer understands costs, risks, and next steps. I would also set realistic timeframes and follow through until the issue is resolved. Good service does not mean saying yes to everything. It means providing an appropriate solution while protecting the customer and the bank. Be sure to mention active listening, accurate needs assessment, plain English explanations, ownership, timely follow-up, privacy, accessibility, and balancing customer satisfaction with responsible product recommendations and policy requirements. Question 5. How would you assess whether a customer can afford a home loan? I would assess affordability using verified income, regular and discretionary expenses, existing liabilities, employment stability, deposit position, and the proposed loan structure. I would test repayments using the required interest rate buffer and consider how changes in rates, income, or expenses could affect the customer. A strong assessment also checks whether the loan meets the customer's objectives and is not unsuitable. I would document the evidence clearly and escalate anything inconsistent or uncertain. Focus on verified income, living expenses, existing debts, liabilities, deposit, loan structure, interest rate buffers, employment stability, responsible lending obligations, and documenting a reasoned assessment rather than relying only on a credit score. Question 6. What does responsible lending mean to you? Responsible lending means recommending credit only after understanding the customer's objectives, financial position, and ability to repay without substantial hardship. It requires accurate verification, transparent explanations of rates and fees, and a documented suitability assessment. I would never allow a sales target or customer pressure to override those obligations. If information were incomplete or contradictory, I would pause the process, clarify the facts, and escalate where necessary. Sustainable outcomes matter more than short-term volume. In your answer, discuss understanding customer objectives, checking financial capacity, avoiding unsuitable products, transparent disclosure, fair treatment, record-keeping, and escalating concerns even when a transaction appears commercially attractive. Question 7. Tell me about a time you identified and managed a risk. In a previous role, I noticed that a monthly report contained duplicated transactions after a system update. The issue could have overstated balances and affected management decisions. I isolated the affected records, compared them with the source ledger, informed my manager, and helped correct the report before distribution. I then added a control comparing transaction counts and totals across systems. The experience reinforced that early escalation and simple reconciliations can prevent larger operational and reputational problems. Use a concise star example covering the risk signal, potential impact, immediate controls, escalation, resolution, and lesson learned. Quantify the consequence avoided or process improvement achieved where possible. Question 8. How would you handle a customer who has missed loan repayments? I would approach the conversation respectfully and without judgment, first confirming the customer's identity and understanding why payments were missed. I would assess whether the issue was temporary, identify any hardship or vulnerability indicators, and explain available support or hardship pathways clearly. I would not promise an outcome outside my authority. Instead, I would document the discussion accurately, involve the appropriate specialist team, and agree on practical next steps while protecting the customer's privacy. Cover empathy, fact-finding, immediate risk assessment, hardship awareness, privacy, clear communication, appropriate support pathways, accurate documentation, and escalation of vulnerability or conduct concerns without making unauthorized promises. Question 9. How do Australian banking regulations affect your day-to-day work? Australian banking regulation shapes how I gather information, make decisions, protect data, and communicate with customers. ASIC-related conduct and responsible lending expectations support suitable outcomes, while APRA focuses heavily on prudential soundness, capital, liquidity, and risk management. Privacy, AML, CTF, complaints, and record-keeping obligations also affect daily processes. I would follow approved procedures, maintain evidence, complete required training, and escalate uncertainty promptly rather than treating compliance as a final checklist. Mention obligations involving ASIC, APRA, privacy, responsible lending, AML, CTF, complaints, operational risk, record-keeping, and customer protection. Explain that regulation guides practical decisions, controls, escalation, and conduct. Question 10. How do you ensure accuracy when processing financial information? I use a structured process, validate the source data, follow the approved procedure, perform reasonableness checks, reconcile totals, and independently review important outputs before submission. For spreadsheets, I use clear formulas, protected inputs, version control, and documented assumptions. I investigate exceptions rather than forcing them to balance, because unusual items often contain the real risk. If I find an error, I correct it promptly, notify affected stakeholders, and strengthen the control that allowed it. Focus on source validation, reconciliations, independent checks, exception review, controlled spreadsheets, documentation, segregation of duties, and timely escalation. Demonstrate that accuracy is both a process and an ownership mindset. Question 11. Describe a time you dealt with a difficult stakeholder or colleague. A stakeholder once challenged a control that delayed their reporting deadline. I first listened to understand the operational pressure, then explained the specific risk the control addressed and shared the evidence behind it. We agreed to a temporary priority review while retaining the key approval step. The report was delivered on time, and we later redesigned the workflow to remove unnecessary delay. That experience taught me to protect important controls while remaining pragmatic about how processes affect colleagues. Choose a star example demonstrating emotional control, listening, fact-based discussion, constructive challenge, shared objectives, and a practical resolution. Avoid criticizing the other person or presenting conflict as purely personal. Question 12. Tell me about a mistake you made and what you learned. Early in my career, I used an outdated template for a client report because I did not confirm the latest version. I caught the discrepancy during my final review, corrected it, and told my manager before the report was issued. I then created a controlled folder with version dates and added a checklist requiring confirmation of the source template. The mistake was limited, but it taught me that small administrative assumptions can undermine confidence in otherwise accurate financial work. Be honest but strategic. Explain the mistake, ownership, business impact, corrective action, communication, preventive control, and changed behavior. Select an example that demonstrates maturity without raising fundamental integrity concerns. Question 13. How do you prioritize competing tasks in a busy banking environment? I prioritize by considering customer impact, regulatory or financial risk, deadline, and dependencies. I would first address time-critical items involving potential harm, missed obligations, or service disruption, then organize routine work around agreed deadlines. I use a task list with clear owners and status, and I communicate early if priorities conflict or capacity becomes constrained. I would rather renegotiate a deadline transparently than rush a high-risk task and create an avoidable error. Discuss customer impact, regulatory deadlines, financial risk, dependencies, urgency versus importance, transparent communication, task tracking, and escalation when capacity threatens quality or service commitments. Question 14. How can data and digital tools improve banking customer outcomes? Digital tools can reduce friction by enabling faster applications, clearer self-service, automated alerts, and more consistent processing. Data can also identify unusual transactions, emerging hardship signals, or customer needs earlier. However, better technology does not remove the need for privacy, cybersecurity, data quality, and human judgment. I would support automation for repetitive, rules-based work while ensuring customers can access knowledgeable staff when circumstances are complex, sensitive, or outside the model's assumptions. Mention faster service, personalization, fraud detection, self-service, accessibility, process automation, data quality, privacy, cybersecurity, and human support for complex or vulnerable customers. Balance innovation with controls. Question 15. What would you do if a colleague asked you to bypass a control to meet a deadline? I would explain that bypassing a control could create customer, regulatory, and reputational risk, even if the immediate deadline seems important. I would ask whether an approved alternative exists, such as an expedited review or authorized escalation, and involve the relevant manager or control owner. I would document the decision and avoid making unauthorized changes. If the pressure continued or suggested misconduct, I would use the bank's speak-up process. Meeting a deadline never justifies compromising integrity. Be sure to cover professional skepticism, policy adherence, customer and regulatory risk, respectful challenge, approved alternatives, documentation, and escalation through management or speak-up channels if pressure continues. Question 16. Which financial metrics would you monitor when assessing a bank's performance? I would monitor net interest margin, loan and deposit growth, credit impairment and non-performing loan trends, capital adequacy, liquidity, cost to income, and return on equity. I would interpret these together rather than relying on one headline figure. For example, rapid lending growth may look positive but could increase future credit losses, while a higher margin may reflect pricing changes or funding pressure. I would also consider customer complaints and service indicators because financial performance must remain sustainable. Cover net interest margin, loan and deposit growth, credit losses, non-performing loans, capital, liquidity, cost to income, return measures, and customer outcomes. Explain how interest rates and credit quality influence interpretation. Question 17. How would you respond to a suspicious transaction or potential financial crime concern? I would remain professional, follow the relevant AML/CTF procedure, and avoid making assumptions or alerting the customer unnecessarily. I would verify available information within my authority, record objective facts such as unusual patterns or inconsistent explanations, and escalate through the approved financial crime channel. I would not conduct an informal investigation, share concerns broadly, or make promises about outcomes. Confidentiality and accurate escalation are essential because suspicion must be handled consistently and lawfully. Mention identifying unusual behavior, not confronting the customer improperly, following AML/CTF procedures, verifying information, preserving confidentiality, escalating through approved channels, and avoiding tipping off for independent investigation. Question 18. How would you manage change in an organization such as Suncorp Bank? I manage change by first understanding the reason, expected customer impact, risks, and measures of success. I learn the new process or system quickly, test my understanding, and raise defects rather than working around them informally. During an integration or operating model change, consistency and communication are particularly important. I would support colleagues, maintain service standards, and stay open to feedback. Adaptability is valuable, but it must be paired with control, discipline, and accountability. Focus on understanding the reason for change, customer and risk impacts, learning new systems, maintaining control discipline, supporting colleagues, communicating issues, and remaining adaptable during integration or operating model changes. Question 19. How would you balance achieving a sales target with doing what is right for the customer? I would treat the target as a prompt to understand customer needs, not as permission to sell unsuitable products. I would ask about objectives, explain relevant options and costs transparently, and recommend only what fits the customer's circumstances. If no appropriate product existed, I would say so and record the interaction properly. Sustainable relationships, low complaints, and sound credit quality are stronger indicators of performance than short-term volume achieved through pressure. Discuss needs-based conversations, suitability, transparent pricing, sustainable relationships, conduct risk, declining inappropriate sales, quality measures, and escalating unrealistic targets or incentives that could encourage poor customer outcomes. Question 20. Why should we hire you for this role at Suncorp Bank? You should hire me because I combine strong attention to detail with a practical, customer-focused approach. I communicate clearly, take ownership of deadlines, and am comfortable challenging information when risk or accuracy is involved. In previous work, I improved reporting efficiency while preserving control quality, which reflects how I would contribute here. I also learn systems quickly and welcome feedback. At Suncorp Bank, I would aim to deliver reliable outcomes for customers, colleagues, and the broader business. Conclude with 3 evidence-backed strengths: role relevance, customer orientation, risk awareness, learning agility, and a clear contribution statement. Avoid generic claims and connect your value directly to the position's requirements. If you are still with us, congratulations. You are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.